Now, you might think, that Hispanic voters might be the types of folks who would have a backlash against Donald Trump's remarks, right? Ain't the case. If you ask Hispanic voters who do they trust more on border security and immigration, overwhelmingly, they trust Donald Trump more by a tremendous margin. Look at that, 49% to 24%. And that is in line with what we're seeing in the polls in general amongst Hispanics, right? Joe Biden won them overwhelmingly back in 2021 and by over 20 percentage points. Democrats normally carry them overwhelmingly. If you look at the polling right now and an average of polling amongst Hispanic voters, who do they choose in the ballot test? It's barely Biden by about 2 points. It would be the smallest margin for any Democratic candidate among Hispanic voters, basically throughout history.
All right, folks. Well, it's been a while since we have, first of all, done a video, and that's my bad. For some reason, I have not had a voice for basically this entire month. I don't know what it is. I don't know if I have mono or something, but we're going to push through here today. But also, it has been a while since we have done a check-in video on the 2024 election and where that all stands. So we're going to do that all here today and show you how the math continues to not look good for Joe Biden, folks. I mean, the Democrats have been standing around the past couple of months saying, guys, it's still early. Biden's the incumbent. He's going to get his surge. And I mean, we're still waiting on that. But at the current moment, that is not happening. And in fact, the numbers just continue to get worse here for Joe Biden. So we will do a check-in on the current polls as of March 25th, 2024. And we will also show you some data with favorability ratings and especially with Hispanic voters that are very interesting and continue to spell drama for Joe Biden. Now, with all of that said, let me start off this video by saying none of the evidence you're going to see here today is a reason to get complacent. And that's what I'm going to warn against the most is don't see this data and get arrogant or get lazy or think we can take our foot off the gas. Because folks, the way I see it, this is all proof that we need to work 10 times harder because we saw what happened in 2020. Now, the numbers we're seeing for Trump at the current moment are much better than they were in 2020. And that's maybe why I have some optimism that, hey, we can win by a margin so big that it won't be as easy for them to pull off those 3 a.m. shenanigans that they did in a close election. But still, you know what can happen. That's why we cannot get complacent. We know that in response, hey, if the Republicans are seeing these numbers, if the Trump campaign is seeing these numbers, that means the Democrats are as well. And if they feel like they're down, they feel like they're desperate, you know they're going to throw out every dirty trick in the book. And so this is why we have to see this and do the opposite of celebrating. We have to say, okay, now more than ever, sense of urgency, do everything we can to make sure that these numbers hold. But with that said, I will show you all of this today. So let's check in on where the polls as of March 24 and soon going into April stand for the general election. And this right here is the RCP polling average. And so if you don't know what that is basically an aggregate. It is a collection of all of the major polls. And so this is not me kind of disingenuously showing you one poll that has Trump winning and saying, look, Trump is winning this poll. Not going to ignore the fact that he's losing this poll, but look, no. This is, again, a collection, an average of all the major polls. And according to the RCP polling average as of March 24, Trump now currently leads in every single swing state. Yes, you heard that right, folks. Okay, so take a look here. We got Arizona, which is a state that really, the past couple of election cycles, Republicans have seriously struggled, and you have seen that. Well, Arizona at the current moment has Trump in the average up 5.4 points. Georgia, +5. This is another state that, hey, Democrats have won, I guess you could say, more or less the past 2 election cycles, and it seems like it's getting close. Well, now Georgia, Trump up +5. Nevada, Trump +4.3. In Michigan, he is up 3.7, and that is going to be a very key swing state in the Rust Belt. We also know Biden is a little bit weak there, specifically because of the Muslim voters and the high Muslim population there. They're not happy over the Israel thing, right? You saw what happened in the Michigan Democrat primary where like 100,000 Democrats voted uncommitted. It's one of his weak states. Well, according to the RCP polling average, Trump is up there +3.7. Okay, and keep this in mind. All those states I just listed, if Trump wins all 4 of these, he will have the presidency. But let's go on now. Also in Wisconsin, Trump is up plus 1.2. And in Pennsylvania, he is up 1. And assuming all of that happens in the general election, you would have a Donald Trump electoral victory of 312 to Joe Biden's 226. And that is way more than enough of the 270 votes that we would need there to win. And keep this in mind, right? I mean, Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, plus 1, plus 1.2, that is easily within the margin of error. Those are not states that I, again, would say there is any reason to be complacent in, because that is still very close. I'm glad to see us winning, but that's still very close. But keep this in mind as well. Even if you lose Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, you, like I said, with these other states where he's up by 3 or more, would have more than enough to win the election anyway. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind there. Trump now leading in all of the major polls, and these are not national polls. And I think that's what's also important here, because obviously we've shown a lot of national polls, right? They poll voters all across the nation where Trump is winning. But it's important also to keep in mind that, first of all, national polls are not always the most accurate. We saw that in 2016 where it just made no sense, right? But then on top of that, the popular vote, which is basically what is polled in those national polls, does not win you the election. And so I think it's way more valid, it's way more accurate to hone in here on these swing states. But specifically, when you look at the swing states, Trump currently doing very well, and you certainly love to see that. But we are not done here with this data, folks, because we got some pretty big news yesterday out of Decision Desk, which is this. Donald Trump's average favorability rating concerning his 2024 candidacy has turned positive for the first time since we began tracking it. Okay? So in the history of Decision Desk, following his presidential candidacy, they've never had a favorable opinion of polling of Trump here, okay? And now, keep in mind, that is not always necessarily the end of the world because, hey, look at 2016. You know, Trump wasn't seen as favorable by a lot of Americans, but he was ultimately, as you can see in the end, a little bit more favorable than Hillary. Biden's kind of the same way here. But yeah, just pointing that out, for the first time in the history of Decision Desk, Donald Trump by 0.1%, but hey, that's still something here because it is trending upward for him, right? Now has, for the first time, a positive favorability rating, okay? So, you know, we always have this talk of how, well, Donald Trump, if he does win, he'll just win because he's despised by Americans a little bit less than the other candidate. And that is kind of our politics these days. You know, it's so divided that, hey, the election is not who's the most popular, it's who's the least unpopular, right? But if now Donald Trump is trending to where he may actually have a positive approval rating overall, a positive favorability rating overall, then, you know, you may just see that his popularity itself is turning in our favor and he will win the election that way. But folks, we are not done. Okay, we're not done because these are sort of, you know, wider polls, wider data and all of that. Take a listen to what's going on here with the Hispanic vote, okay? And this is something over the past couple of years, you can see my old videos. I have been kind of predicting and signaling, you know, Hispanics historically have been a very strong, obviously minority group that the Democrats rely on. I started to call out that you are seeing the cracks here. Okay, you're starting to see the cracks. Now listen to this. So Anderson Cooper on CNN recently had this guest on, and he explained that, you know, obviously, and I think there's a lot of reasons for this. I would say border security is the number one issue. I'd say the economy is a big issue here too. But listen to what's going on here with the Hispanic vote and how Biden, according to some of these polls, has lost 18 points of his ratings with Hispanic voters. Take a listen here.
You know, you might think, you know, that Hispanic voters might be the types of folks who would have a backlash against Donald Trump's remarks, right? Ain't the case. If you ask Hispanic voters who do they trust more on border security and immigration, Overwhelmingly, they trust Donald Trump more by a tremendous margin. Look at that, 49% to 24%. And that is in line with what we're seeing in the polls in general amongst Hispanics, right? Joe Biden won them overwhelmingly back in 2021 and by over 20 percentage points. Democrats normally carry them overwhelmingly. If you look at the polling right now and an average of polling amongst Hispanic voters, who did they choose in the ballot test? It's barely Biden by about 2 points. It would be the smallest margin for any Democratic candidate among Hispanic voters basically throughout history since we started polling the gosh darn thing. So the fact is, at this point, there's no backlash, and at this point, I don't see one coming.
So that tells you a lot, right? Because historically, what has the line been about Donald Trump? He hates Hispanics. He wants to deport everyone, blah, blah, blah. Well, now we're at a point where Biden is so unpopular and the border crisis specifically is so bad where even you would think, oh, Hispanics, well, it's mostly Hispanics coming over the border, so they're going to sympathize with their in-group preference there. The opposite of that is actually happening, at least according to these polls, where no, just like everyone else, Hispanic voters, and we're talking, the people who are eligible to vote, so legal Hispanic citizens are actually just as pissed at Biden over this border crisis as everything else. And keep this in mind, too. So you read the CNN headline at the bottom, and this is something also that we are seeing in these polls. Immigration is the top issue for voters, right? Immigration, according to these polls, is going to be the issue that decides the election. When people are going to that ballot box, it's going to likely be the top issue that they are voting on. Well, folks, you see these numbers right here, and I think it's also common sense. If this election comes down to immigration and it is a referendum on immigration, Donald Trump is going to win that astoundingly, okay? Because not only is his own identity as a political figure since 2016, not only has it always been immigration, build the wall, fix the border, which I'd argue, I think you're seeing now, a lot of Americans who do not take that stuff as seriously back in 2016 are now looking at Joe Biden and saying, wow, this stuff does matter. Actually, Donald Trump was right about the border. And you see this number here, right? Better on doing a better job on border security and immigration among Hispanic voters, among the people that, hey, the Democrats are trying to say they're going to deport you and your cousins and all that. Well, 49 to 24, Trump leads Biden there, okay? So his favorability, obviously, Biden's being, even with Hispanic voters, this is with minorities, is underwater, okay? So you are certainly here seeing that as well. And I think that translates here to numbers you're seeing out of Texas, okay? And this is another data point I want to bring up here. Now, Texas, I don't think in this election cycle is being seen as a serious swing state. But remember, it was just a couple of years ago that Beto O'Rourke almost beat Ted Cruz in the state of Texas. It was just a couple of years ago that Democrats looked at Texas and said, hey, it's trending to the left, right? You remember the whole plan that they had here to take over Texas? You flip Texas blue, you can win the elections till the end of time. Well, folks, take a look at this NPR poll that just came out of Texas. It's got Trump, I should say, 55 to 44, beating Biden by 11 points in Texas. That is close or around the 2016 margins, okay? This indicates that actually Texas, yes, it flirted a little bit with heading towards the Democrats. It's now swinging back red, right? Back to the right. So that has Trump plus 11. The one that includes RFK Jr. actually has Trump up plus 12, which is also very interesting because we've had this debate over whether, hey, will RFK's candidacy, impact Trump more or Biden more? A lot of conservatives think it's actually going to help Trump. I have been making the opposite case, which is, yes, some Trump voters will go for it, but I actually think it hurts Biden more. Well, if you look here at this poll, it actually had RFK actually is hurting Biden more than Trump. So that's interesting, but that's plus 12. We've got Ted Cruz here up plus 6. Okay. Now keep in mind that 2018 election against Beto was deadlocked neck and neck. Now he's up plus 6 for Ted Cruz standards. That's a pretty comfortable margin. And the generic ballot here in Texas has the GOP up plus 10. And what does that show? Largely, among other things, I would argue it shows that immigration like I said, like we just showed you, the top issue for voters in the election is backfiring on Democrats at the current moment, okay? Because not only do Americans in general despise what's happening, okay? This is even Americans who maybe otherwise politically are in the center, or even Americans who favor the Democrats generally are saying this border situation is out of control. Texas is a border state. That obviously impacts them the most, but it is so unpopular with Americans what's going on down south that it's even impacting Hispanic voters, as we just showed you there in that segment, and also as we show you here, right? Because we just got the news earlier this year that for the first time, Texas was no longer a white majority state, right? The demographics of that place are changing a lot, but even with that in mind, okay, this issue is even so unpopular among Hispanics that it's actually making Texas more red, okay? And so for a while, Democrats relied on the idea, well, if we win all the Hispanics in Texas, then we can easily take the state. Well, now you're not winning the Hispanics, so what's going to happen there? Exactly. The issue in the current moment, in the short run, has backfired on the Democrats. Now, here's what, folks, the concern, in my opinion, is going to be, is that while, and this is why I say again, A, we can't get complacent, and B, why this election is so important, that is the border in the current moment backfiring on the Democrats? Yes, it is. Absolutely. That's why even Hispanic voters in Texas are pissed at what's happening, and they're trending to the right. But with that in mind, here's the game plan for them. It's a long-term plan. Because if we do not seize the current moment, we do not seize the Democrats' current unpopularity on immigration in order to win this election, take back the White House, and deport all of these recent illegal immigrants, then what is going to happen is that in the future, at some point when the Democrats have the power, and they will do so with the aid likely of a lot of the neocon Republicans, is they're going to pass amnesty, right? So even the Hispanic voters, the Latinos that you may say have been grandfathered into America, you know, maybe they're older immigrants or they're second generation, fifth generation, whatever, even if they start to trend more Republican, what happens the moment they offer amnesty to all of these new illegals who have come in under Biden? Forget it, right? Texas will become a blue state, very likely, or very likely close to it, okay? I think I saw a statistic the other day that the amount of illegals that have come in under Biden, which is estimated to be somewhere around, I think they said 12 million, somewhere around there, is like more than the population of 16 US states or something like that. Someone can fact check me the exact statistic, but the point is, the moment they give all these people amnesty, then citizenship, then the right to vote, the Democrats have won. Okay, that's why I say it's backfiring on them, yes, but backfiring in the short term. Okay, that's why we need to take advantage of it in the short term. Because if we screw this up and they hold on to power for just a little bit longer, that amnesty bill is coming. And then you can forget all the talk about illegal immigration because, hey, all of the people who came in under Biden, and Biden is the one, or the Democrats are the ones who gave them their amnesty and citizenship, who do you think those people are going to vote for? It's a slam dunk deal, okay? That's exactly why we got to take advantage of this. But folks, with that said, there are the current numbers on the 2024 election. Like I will reiterate, do not get complacent, but at the current moment, it is certainly looking good. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Let me know if you think these margins will be enough to overcome the quote-unquote fortification that may or may not happen, right? Let me know. And until next time, be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Alpha moves only. God bless and peace.